There are moments in every mission when agreement is tested not by enemies outside, but by differences within. When shared purpose meets different perspectives, when unity is challenged not by opposition, but by disagreement, when even faithful companions must choose separate paths while still serving the same mission. This is what happened to Paul and Barnabas. They had traveled together through cities filled with both miracles and persecution. They had preached the gospel across regions, seen Gentiles come to faith, and endured rejection, violence, and opposition. They had stood side by side in councils, in debates, and in dangerous cities. Their partnership had been one of the strongest in the early church. But now, something unexpected happened, and it did not come from outside pressure. It came from a decision about who would travel with them next. Paul said to Barnabas, "Let us go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we preach the word of the Lord and see how they are doing." This was a natural next step. After planting churches and establishing believers, returning to strengthen them was part of their mission rhythm. Barnabas agreed in principle. But then a new question arose. Barnabas wanted to take John Mark along with them. John Mark was not a stranger. He had been part of their earlier journey. But during that first missionary trip, he had left them in Pamphylia and returned to Jerusalem. That departure had left unresolved tension. Paul, however, did not think it was wise to take him again. He felt that someone who had previously withdrawn from the mission should not be included in this next journey. This disagreement was not about doctrine. It was about trust, experience, and readiness, and it became sharp. So sharp that it led to a separation. Barnabas insisted on giving John Mark another chance. Paul insisted on maintaining reliability for the mission. Neither side is described as malicious. Neither side is portrayed as abandoning faith. Instead, both are acting from conviction. But their convictions are different, and so the disagreement deepens. The result is separation. Barnabas takes John Mark and sails to Cyprus. Paul chooses Silas and departs on a different route after being commended by the believers to the grace of the Lord. At first glance, this moment may seem like failure, a partnership broken, a team divided, a mission split. But to understand this passage, we need to see beyond surface conflict, because what appears as division becomes multiplication. Two mission paths now emerge instead of one. Barnabas and John Mark go one direction, Paul and Silas go another, and the gospel expands further than before. This is one of the most important themes in Acts. Movement does not stop because of separation. It often increases. But before we go deeper into outcomes, we need to understand what is happening emotionally and relationally in this moment. Paul and Barnabas were not casual co-workers. They had endured significant experiences together. Barnabas had been the one who initially supported Paul when others doubted him. He had advocated for his acceptance into the early Christian community when many were afraid of his past. That history makes this disagreement more complex, because Barnabas is not acting randomly. He is acting from a consistent character trait, encouragement and restoration. His name itself reflects this, son of encouragement. He sees potential in John Mark where others see failure. Paul, on the other hand, is focused on mission stability and reliability. He has faced opposition, stoning, and rejection in multiple cities. For him, mission effectiveness requires dependable companions. So this is not simply a personal disagreement. It is a clash of perspectives on restoration and responsibility. And in that tension, they reach a decision to part ways. Barnabas takes John Mark and goes to Cyprus, his home region. Paul chooses Silas, one of the leaders from Jerusalem who had been sent with the earlier letter to Gentile believers. This choice is significant, because Silas is not just a replacement companion. He is a respected leader who had already been part of the council decision in Jerusalem. Paul and Silas travel through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. Meanwhile, Barnabas and John Mark continue their journey in Cyprus. What is important here is that the text does not describe this separation as sinful or condemned. It simply states the outcome. There is no accusation, no moral judgment, no suggestion that one side is right and the other is wrong in absolute terms. Instead, the narrative moves forward. This suggests something important about how early Christian mission operates. Unity does not always mean staying together physically. Sometimes unity is preserved through shared purpose, even when paths diverge. Another important detail is what happens afterward in broader scripture context. Later writings suggest that relationships are not permanently broken. There is restoration and reconciliation over time. This indicates that separation in this moment is not the end of relationship, but a transition in mission strategy. But within Acts 15, the focus is not on reconciliation yet. The focus is on movement. Paul and Silas travel through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening churches. This phrase is important. They are not starting new conflicts. They are strengthening existing believers. Their mission continues with stability and encouragement. Barnabas and John Mark, meanwhile, return to Cyprus. Cyprus had been the location of their earlier success in ministry, so Barnabas returns to familiar ground, now with John Mark, who is being given another opportunity. This creates two parallel mission streams, one focused on expansion and strengthening new regions, one focused on restoration and continuation in familiar territory. From a human perspective, this looks like division. From a narrative perspective, it becomes multiplication. This passage also reveals something deeper about leadership in early Christian movement. Disagreement does not automatically mean disqualification. Both Paul and Barnabas continue in ministry. Neither is removed, neither is rejected by the church. Instead, both are entrusted to continue their work. This shows a flexible but purposeful structure within the early church. Another key theme is trust. Paul's concern is trust in mission execution. Barnabas' concern is trust in restoration and growth. Both concerns are valid, but they emphasize different priorities. And when priorities differ strongly, separation becomes the practical outcome. But separation does not end the mission, it expands it. Paul's journey with Silas will eventually lead to new cities, new believers, and new developments in the spread of the gospel. Barnabas' journey with John Mark will also lead to growth and restoration that will bear fruit later in the broader narrative of the early church. Even though Acts does not focus heavily on Barnabas after this point, other writings suggest that John Mark later becomes a valuable worker in ministry. This suggests that Barnabas' decision to invest in him was not wasted. In fact, it becomes part of a longer process of development. This is an important principle in leadership and mission. People develop at different speeds, and restoration often requires patience. Paul's decision, meanwhile, reflects the urgency and pressure of ongoing mission work. Both perspectives contribute to the broader expansion of the gospel. This passage also highlights how human disagreement exists even among deeply faithful people. Paul and Barnabas are not described as losing faith. They are described as disagreeing strongly. This distinction matters, because disagreement does not necessarily equal failure of character or mission. It often reflects different interpretations of timing, readiness, and strategy. And in this case, the disagreement leads to structural change in mission pathways. Another important reflection from this passage is that God's work is not limited to one perfect human partnership. Even strong partnerships can change shape without ending purpose. The gospel continues through different people, in different directions, through different circumstances, and that continuity is what defines the movement in Acts. As Paul and Silas depart, the mission continues. As Barnabas and John Mark sail to Cyprus, restoration continues. Both paths remain within the broader unfolding story. This shows that the early church is not built on one personality or one partnership, but on a shared message that transcends individual relationships, and that message continues forward. Even when companions part ways, even when methods differ, even when perspectives conflict, the mission continues. Because the foundation is not human agreement alone, it is the message they carry, and that message remains unchanged. The separation of Paul and Barnabas is not the end of unity in purpose. It is the beginning of diversified mission movement. And from that point onward, the gospel continues to expand through multiple channels, reaching more places than a single team could cover. What begins as disagreement becomes expansion. What appears as division becomes multiplication. And what seems like a fracture becomes a broader foundation for future growth. This is the deeper meaning of Acts 15, verse 36 to 41. Not a story of failure, but a story of continued purpose through different paths. Thank you for watching. If this message helped you understand this passage more deeply, Take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need encouragement, and follow the Holy Path Insights channel for more biblical reflections that bring Scripture to life in a meaningful and powerful way.